The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of our tradecraft analysis of The Departed. In part 1, we set up all the major characters and talk about the tradecraft involved in being a deep cover informant, or a cop that is secretly working for an organized crime. If you missed out on part 1, there's a simple solution. You might want to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you can always stay caught up with us.
At the point we left off, our Leo DiCaprio hero is feeling more anxious than ever. He's failed to prevent the gang's social security information from falling into the hands of Costello's mole in the Boston Police Department. We resume here as he's about to meet his boss, Martin Sheen, on a secluded rooftop in this episode of Spies Like Us. Our next major scene involves Sheen and Leo meeting face-to-face again. And the reason that they need to meet is Leo's getting, we just went through the scene where Costello seems to be really like sniffing his ass pretty fucking hard.
Yeah.
He knows that whatever the information in the envelope, well, obviously he gave fake information, but in his mind, he thinks that that's going to turn up as a red flag to Costello. Right. And that he's probably on, some kind of clock of like, I think at this point he's saying like, just get me out, right?
Right.
So, they arranged this meeting on a rooftop of an abandoned building. It's not a bad place to meet, right?
Yeah.
Except for the fact that there's no, exit routes. But
right.
It's isolated. I'll give him that. Maybe you didn't need to go to the rooftop. You could have had your meeting on the bottom floor. I don't know. But Matt Damon is following the right play, which again, he got the idea from Sheen in the first place. Follow the leader to find the rat. So he's told Costello, like somehow he finds out that Leo and Sheen are meeting.
I think he's just kind of following the leader, like you had pointed out. That
right.
I'm just going to tell Sheen he must be following him. I don't think they know that he's meeting with him. They're just probably watching him.
And he's using his new powers as a, special investigator or whatever to actually be able to put the cops on following Sheen.
Yeah.
And so the reports he gets from his cops, the cops are just, they're like, why the fuck are we doing this? He's like, shut up, just do your job. And they're okay with that for a bit. But he's also telling Costello, like, this is it. Like, Sheen is going to meet his rat. So both the cops are going for reasons they don't know why.
Right.
And Costello's crew is going to this location that they know that, or strongly suspect,
right,
Sheen is going to meet with Leo.
Uh-huh.
And so, of course, whatever the gang equivalent of an APB goes out, where everyone's supposed to call everyone and say like, hey, we got to get to this one address, to this one rooftop. Everybody go. And they can't get a hold of Leo for a bit, but when they do, interestingly, and this might be interesting in more ways than one, De La Hunt gives Leo the wrong address. Now, he will later state that was an accident. The address was 844, and he accidentally told him 814.
Uh-huh.
But, of course, Leo is already at the correct address.
Right.
So it does, it's terrifying when you think of that, to think like, oh, someone will put those two pieces together.
Right.
We know the resolution of the rooftop scene. The Leo gets away, sorta, Well, he gets away from being identified. Sheen gets killed. The cops are like, what the fuck is going on? And a gunfight ensues where De La Hunt gets shot. And not fatal. I mean, he gets shot fatally, but he doesn't die right away.
Right.
The gang does kind of get away. And it's, you know, it's later as they're kind of recovering and saying like, oh shit, that was fucking rough. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That De La Hunt, the dying De La Hunt, motions Leo over and says like, hey, you know, I was thinking whoever didn't show up at the right place, that would be the rat. Which kind of doesn't make sense logically, because the rat should show up. If you're playing werewolf,
Right.
You definitely want to be a villager.
Yeah, exactly.
When the head villager says, "Let's go get a werewolf," even if you're a werewolf, you go fucking you go do what the head villager says, right?
Right, exactly.
And then you want to take over from here, right?
Well, that's when De La Hunt says, "By the way, I gave you the wrong address, but you were at the right address."
Now hold on. He doesn't say, "By the way, I gave you the right address." He says, "Ugh, Leo, I'm dying."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's like, "I gave you the wrong address. It said 814, and it was actually 844, but you were at the right address. Tell me why I didn't say nothing. Tell me." So this is when it's revealed that De La Hunt was actually undercover as well, and has basically been keeping his back or whatever. Or didn't tell the mob that he knows that Leo's the rat, and then De La Hunt dies. They throw his body somewhere, and it's discovered that he was an undercover agent.
How does this make sense that De La Hunt knows that Leo is, like, assuming, which we have strong evidence to believe, but it's not definitive. I would say it's not definitive. It's hard to say. We don't get like de facto proof that De La Hunt was a cop.
Yes, we do. It was on the news. They threw after he died. They threw his body in the middle of nowhere.
Well, Costello thinks that could be a disinformation scheme. And so I think you still have to accept the idea it's possible, theoretically possible, that it is a disinformation scheme.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But like what you're saying, that wouldn't make sense, in that, well, then you have to turn around to De La Hunt's death scene where he says, like, hey, Leo, tell me why I didn't tell them.
Right.
But then once we accept the theory, which I think, like, when I say theory, I mean, like, the most plausible theory.
Right.
That he is a cop. How did he know that Leo was also a cop?
Because he gave him the wrong address, and he shows up to the right address. But 814 isn't that far from 844. And I don't know if he gave him the wrong street. No, it was the same street, right? So...
right, so wait, so De La Hunt says, I knew that whoever didn't show up, which I already said, like, kind of doesn't exactly...
Yeah, but that line is from Infernal Affairs also. That the idea is people were called to show up to get the rat, and whoever didn't show up was the rat, because the rat isn't going to show up to beat up himself. And Leo didn't get the calls to pick up the rat. That's why he got the late call when he's on the rooftop with Sheen. Where the hell are you? We've been calling you. He's like, and he even gets interrogated later, like, well, why didn't you answer the phone? He was like, I didn't have any service.
I get all that. Let me just put the question to you plainly. Why does De La Hunt protect Leo?
Because he's an undercover cop.
And that means that he knows that Leo is an undercover cop?
Right. And how he figured that out is because he gave him the wrong address, and Leo showed up to the right address.
I don't know how... I don't think you, or really anyone, are as huge of an Aliens fanboy as me to be excited about the fact that I found... I when I was doing research for this podcast, I found out another role that De La Hunt was in Aliens.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Do you want to take a guess of what? I'll make it easy for you. He was one of the Marines,
Okay.
and he had some good lines and he had a good death. He doesn't last too long through the movie, but can you want to take a guess?
I'm drawing a blank.
All right. Remember Vasquez?
Uh
They got two people on the Marine teams that have like the big fucking heavy smart guns,
huh.
which is Vasquez and Drake, and they're like homies in Aliens.
Uh huh.
It's her. They're like the two badass Marines that are like between themselves. They're like, yeah, we obviously all of us Marines are badass, but you and me are the most badass, right?
Right.
That's Drake, the actor that played Delahunt.
Oh.
Is that dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Now that Sheen's dead,
Right.
Matt's got access to.
Sheen's cell phone. This was a really cool scene.
Let's hear it.
He basically realized that, he's going through all of the stuff from the crime scene, and there's a bloodied cell phone in the bag, and a light bulb sparks for Matt Damon, and he's like, oh, he probably called him. So he calls the last phone number that was received. Leo picks up, doesn't say a word. Matt Damon doesn't say a word. Leo hangs up. Back, I guess, hoping
I think let's give both of them some spy points for being totally quiet here.
Yeah.
Like Leo picks up that phone, like that phone call is coming from a dead man.
Yeah, he even says that, and that's why he calls back, I guess. But
right, but at first he says absolutely nothing.
Right.
And Matt just made the call to see like what the other person would say. I really just love this scene. I want to give them both some spy points for just listening and not talking.
Yeah. But then Leo calls back, I guess hoping to get some information. He's like, I want to know why you're calling from a dead man's phone. And Matt Damon's like, oh, it's you.
What I'm trying to say is I just want to flag this. It's important and it's thought through. It is. I mean, it turns out to be a bad decision, sort of, because what it does is it gives Matt Damon a chance to seed the lie of I've taken over for Sheen,
right?
Which is massive plus spy points. I guess I can't give minus spy points to Leo though for making that call back, because what else is he gonna do? Right.
He doesn't really have any outs right now. Marky Mark's the only one that knows his identity. So who's he really gonna reach out to at this point?
You know what? Maybe he should have also had Marky Mark's phone number instead of only having Martin Sheen's phone number.
Well, I mean, you want to kind of protect your web, right?
Yeah, I get that.
You want to compartmentalize, like, I guess.
I get it, compartmentalize.
I mean, maybe this is how Marky Mark finds things out at the end, because he's like nowhere to be found. He's not answering calls for anybody, and he's doing his own investigation, I guess.
But he doesn't. Marky Mark doesn't have Leo's phone number? Maybe he should be calling Leo.
Well, maybe that's why he's not answering. I mean, he's just been given 2 weeks leave with pay. He's not supposed to be doing anything. I don't know. We don't get any information about what's going on with him, so we just kind of presume he's been going in and knocking on doors or following people or something.
Just doing Marky Mark stuff.
Yeah, just
calling people cocksuckers.
Right? Listen here, cocksucker. I'm from Boston. Don't tell me nothing. I already know this. I know this drill. So don't be a cocksucker and tell me what you know. I like that idea. I want to see that movie.
You want to see? Oh, I do too. Yeah. I really do. If Mark Wahlberg's agents are listening, if you want the Todd dollar, this is what you're gonna fucking do. All right, you're gonna make a TV series,
right?
And it's gonna be called Dignum.
Absolutely. I would
You
totally
gonna
watch it.
you gonna put that shit on Hulu or some shit that I don't give a shit enough about to fucking subscribe to, but I'm gonna see that. I'm gonna be like, fuck, you motherfuckers, you got you 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 done fucking got my dollar.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But when Leo calls back, Matt Damon kind of keeps up the act. He's like, "Oh, it's you. Hey, why don't you come in? Like, you did good work and stuff like that." So this is actually my best number 3 is Matt Damon keeping up the cover when calling in with Leo. He actually keeps his cover up the whole time.
It's my best number 2. I'm with you. It's strong spy points for Marky Mark.
Massive.
Or for Matt Damon, sorry.
Yeah, it's really good. He's just like, "Hey, you've done good work. Come on in and we'll talk. We'll take care of you. Thank you for your service." Like.
Yeah, he reels him in nicely.
Mm-hmm. Which of course Leo can't do because they still haven't taken down Costello, so they still gotta work on it and figure it out.
Oh, right, because Leo doesn't come in until after Costello is dead.
Right.
That's what makes him feel safe to come in. That is very interesting to me.
Yeah, at this point he can't come in because Sheen's dead. He still has to do his duty. Costello's not taken down. This guy Sheen just gave up his life for him to protect him. He wanted out, but now he can't get out because it's
he knows there's somebody
right
could still basically put his neck under Costello's chopping block. He only feels safe to even attempt to come in basically after the next scene of the movie that we're going to talk about, which is where Costello and Frenchie and basically the whole crew gets just fucking annihilated.
But at this point, just dialing it back, Matt Damon going through Martin Sheen's stuff finds photos that leads him to find out that Costello is not only FBI protected, but is an informant for the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put this down as my number 2 best. We discussed this early on in the podcast, but basically Costello was untouchable because he was an FBI informant. And what he was doing was basically handing stuff to the FBI, and to
the Boston PD.
And the Boston PD, so he was basically immune to anything. And this is what kind of helped him stay one step ahead of everything, is because, he was playing all of the sides at this point.
And that's the real story of Whitey Bulger right there. Is how he got away with what he did for so long, was that he was playing both sides.
Right.
We're gonna get soon to a point where Matt Damon is saying Leo is accusing Matt Damon of working for Costello.
Uh-huh.
Matt Damon's defense is, fuck you, Costello was working for me.
Right. Right.
But when you really delve into these things, and again, like Sicario, we're gonna do Sicario someday, right?
Right. Absolutely.
This is what I call, to me, the Sicario problem, where it's when when you're in so deep with the enemy that both of you are benefiting equally to the detriment of other factions involved, that it's indistinguishable. The chess game has become
cooperation.
Yeah. It's turned into it's so fascinating. I love the way this movie explores that. I love the way Sicario explores that. But Matt Damon's he's got a point there. I mean, he's got a legit way of getting himself out of this, as long as he manages to kill anybody that doesn't know anything more about it.
Yeah, right.
So let's get to this final chapter, which is kind of weird at this point in that, Costello, to me, at this point, should be highly on edge, and maybe the smart thing right now with, like, things are at a fever pitch, with both sides. And for some reason, Costello chooses this point to do, like, I don't know, some huge fucking drug deal or whatever back on the docks. I'll give it, -5 points. This is not the time to do your big fucking drug deal.
Well, this is the big climax, because this is what kind of...
It's the soft climax, because
Right.
this movie has 2 climaxes.
Mm-hmm.
This is what in a normal movie would have been the climax.
Right.
and would have been like the end of the movie. Did you notice too, like, they never even say really in the movie what this last drug deal... I'm pulling drug deal out of my ass because they don't even say where Costello's going or what he's doing, but it's apparently something bad, and he's very vulnerable to being, caught by the cops here.
And this is what kind of takes Costello down.
There's also a little weird thing. I cannot fucking figure this one out. You see Leo text the destination of where he's going with Costello to Matt Damon. Why? That's how Matt Damon gets the information of where Costello's going.
Does he text like Sheen's phone? I don't even remember this.
You will see, all I know, I don't know what phones are being used, but you will see in very short order, Leo is in the back of the car, and he's texting the location, and he's looking around, making sure he's not being observed, and then you will immediately see Matt Damon get that text.
Oh. That's funny.
It doesn't make... Well, okay, unless you buy into that at this point, Leo is maybe like making his play to see if the person on the end
this is
of
him
the line of the dead man's phone is gonna follow up. Now that,
because if he doesn't, then we know who he is. So this is... Oh, wow. So he runs his own bury a meal kind of, but he's putting in good information. That makes sense.
To find out if the guy on the other side of the phone will actually show up with the cops. Which, again, oh my God, we spent so much time talking about, like, Leo's decision to actually give Matt Damon's lie a chance, to have a chance to believe that this person is actually on his side.
Right.
So yeah, wow. I'm glad we talked it through like that, because it makes so much more sense like that by now.
Matt Damon kills Costello, and with that, he has no one that knows his real identity, or at least he thinks, and he can play the good guy cop.
Right. So, but he kills Costello. Why?
So now he could be the good guy. He's the one that took down Costello. No one needs to know that I was the rat the whole time or the mole the whole time. I get to walk away clean, and I could stay like the poster child.
Absolutely love how it works out, but I just want to spend a moment to think through Matt Damon's play. He knows that Costello is in bed with people other than himself.
Costello could throw him under the bus if he ever needs to cut his weight, or something like that.
His motivation changes at this point. He realizes he doesn't know how deep the game could go.
Right.
And so in a way, like, he wants out.
Right.
And we're going to come back to this when we talk about Infernal Affairs.
Absolutely.
In a true fucking Hong Kong movie, it always has to come down to one man versus one man.
Right.
Everyone else has to be dead.
Right.
And this you can see this also in, like, so many, like, samurai movies.
Right.
And stuff. Like, and then you gotta have, like, the resolution of the mono a mono.
Right.
Right?
Right, yeah, because at this point, everybody's dead. Leo comes into the office. Matt gets his like slow clap, and then Leo gets his like like shoulder pats and like, oh my God, you were the undercover, blah blah blah, and Matt's still keeping his cover. Especially since Costello's dead, nobody really knows who he is. At least he doesn't think so, and he's just kind of like, hey, let's get you paid, man. You did a good job. Let's go and get all your stuff. But I can't get into your file. What's the password? And it was like his fucking name. And he's just like, wait, well, I think in Infernal Affairs it was undercover or something. But here it's like, yeah.
Either way, yeah. Your fucking password is your name, you stupid fuck. Minus all the spy points, please.
Right. Well, even Matt Damon's like, your name? It's your fucking name? He's just mad at himself, which kind of makes sense because that would definitely be right under his nose with everything that they're dealing with. He's not going to sit down and try and crack the code, right? He doesn't have time for that or the mental space to even think outside of the box or whatever. But yeah, no, definitely on you with that. It's a little iffy whether or not Matt Damon could delete Leo's file. Like, yeah, he was put in charge of this SIU operation to find the mole. But he's, one, not the head of SIU, and number two, he's definitely not in charge of the database of SIU or the Boston Police Department.
Hold on. Yeah, SIU's a different thing. SIU's what Alec Baldwin's running. This is Internal Affairs. But still, your point is good. I'm also iffy on the idea that Leo seeing the envelope on Matt Damon's desk just proves that.
By the way, where the envelope you're talking about is that yellow manila envelope that had all of the mob write their names, social security numbers. Then the guy writes citizen wrong. He crosses it out and spells it correctly.
Right, and the movie just fucking like jumps over backwards to make sure that at every single point that we see the envelope, that we can easily identify it. If Leo thinks that Matt Damon is who he says he is, that Matt Damon is doing his fucking job, and that there's a lot of ways he could have gotten a hold of that envelope.
I see what you're saying, but I still kind of disagree because, well, one, the reason why we have to have the handwriting is so that we know this is a unique envelope. There's no way that it's no other envelope than the one that Leo crossed out. So cinematically, it's important. But once Leo sees the envelope, he just leaves. I'm gonna put this as my number 3 worst tradecraft. Should have kept up his cover. He should have played along and and lured Matt Damon in till he got more evidence. And this is what leads into my worst number 3. Leo, after discovering the envelope, realizes that Matt Damon is the mole. And at that point, he just up and leaves the building. And I think that was a bad play because at this point, by doing that, he let Matt Damon know that he knows he's the mole.
Right. Never let them know what you know.
Right. Never. Right. And, he's panicked. He thought he was in a safe space. He now realizes he's not in a safe space. And he's just like, I got to get out of here. He runs off, gives the therapist that makes Matt and Leo Eskimo brothers an envelope and says, don't open this unless, something bad happens to me. You're the only person I can trust. And then he mails Matt Damon recordings of, it turns out Costello records has a wire on him all the time. So he can have evidence on everything and everybody in case he needs to take anybody down. And apparently Costello had his attorney send all these tapes to Leo. And I guess Leo's the only guy he could trust or something.
I don't buy that shit at all.
Yeah.
I think that's a super minus spy points for the movie. It's a total bullshit shortcut. There's no way that Costello gave instructions to his lawyer to give the newest guy on his crew that, again, we've talked ad infinitum about like all the reasons that Costello would have to distrust Leo,
Right.
that's the guy that it's. I can see. Again, it comes down to there's only so many minutes we can put in a movie. I can see some ways that Leo could have gotten his hands on Costello's recordings, and that would have been cool. But we don't need another fucking 10 minutes, in a movie that's already pretty long.
Right.
But it's minus 5 points. It's a blink of an eye and it's gone.
Well, they actually did a good job of this in Infernal Affairs. The mob boss, you see, there's a quick shot where he takes out tapes and puts it in a drawer. So our Infernal Affairs, like Leo equivalent, would know where those tapes are and could get them later.
Right. Awesome.
But he gives Madeline, the therapist, an envelope, mails a recording of the conversation at the porn theater to Matt Damon, but Madeline gets them and starts listening to him. It's when she realizes the guy that she's basically engaged to or married to or whatever at this point is and living with is like a crooked cop that's like working with like this crazy high level like criminal organization, and that's how she finds out that Matt's been, on like Team Bad Guy the whole time, which like totally like shatters her reality about him. But I think you're right about like bullshit on the attorney mailing it to them.
Scorsese's got a huge blind spot on female characters. I've got some other thoughts we're going to talk about later on Infernal Affairs, but just like I feel like he just like kind of pastes in a couple of females just to have them there,
right?
And her realizing this whole thing. I mean, yeah, it's a good scene, but her character is still just a fucking ghost in this film.
Yeah, she has no dimension whatsoever. It's really shitty. And neither does Costello's wife.
Right.
And those are the only two women in the whole film.
I mean, I did like Costello's wife. I liked seeing her in her few moments of being like this one person in the entire universe that could tell Frank, like, shut the fuck up,
right.
Let's go. But her whole motivation is like, shut up so we can go have sex. And Scorsese movies are never, ever, ever going to pass the Bechdel test.
No, definitely not.
It's not his thing. I think I've said before, I'll say it again. Ladies, Scorsese movies. This is my little, how Jon Stewart would turn the camera over and just have a little one-on-one with the audience.
Yeah.
This is my moment. Ladies, Martin Scorsese does not make movies for you. He really doesn't. You should maybe watch one of them just to get an idea of what kind of shit goes down in a Martin Scorsese movie, and then you basically got it. You don't need to watch any of the others. And If you're gonna watch one, I'm gonna have to go with Goodfellas. But then
I would agree.
Just don't worry about it.
Well, that and Taxi Driver, because Taxi Driver is kind of like in its own right, I guess. I think that's his first film. I think Taxi Driver and Goodfellas, and then you're good.
Yeah, I would go with that. Absolutely. I mean, Taxi Driver's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But again, there's just so little room for women in Scorsese's films. It's really glaring.
Yeah.
These are movies about men and men's twisted motivations and men's ambitions and goals. But The Departed, at least, I think I said this at the top of the podcast, at least this of Scorsese's films, recent films, is more about men's fears than it is about their ambitions and their hubris.
Right.
And that's why I respond well to it. But not a date movie. Nah.
Well, I guess it depends on the date.
Right.
I know some dates that I probably could have taken to a Departed film. But yeah. But this would not be like a Valentine's date. Maybe not. I don't know. Depends on the date, I guess.
How about this last shit though? Like that. Okay, so let's assume this bullshit that Leo's got the tapes. We'll just stipulate that. How does he make his play? He makes his play by basically teasing the enemy, teasing Matt Damon by mailing him the tapes,
Right.
and saying, "I know all your shit, you fucking rat fuck." He makes a phone call, says, "Fuck you, I fucking know everything about you. Let's meet."
Right.
Is that the right play? I don't think
No.
so. I don't think so.
The only reason I think the movie puts it as the right play is because Matt Damon's the only one that has his identity. Marky Mark's missing. I think that's probably the biggest hole of the film.
Apparently, what Leo says, because Brown shows up, like Leo is setting Matt Damon up to arrest him personally.
Right.
And apparently he told Brown, like Brown shows up on the rooftop and Leo's flipping out. He's like, "Fuck you." Like, "Brown, I told you to meet me downstairs and to bring Marky Mark." Okay, so Brown didn't follow instructions in two ways.
Right.
He didn't meet him downstairs, and B, he didn't bring Marky Mark.
Right.
Which, of course, Leo assumes that Brown has some way to get a hold of Marky Mark. I'm not sure why,
Right.
but apparently Brown doesn't have that kind of access. Instead, Brown shows up upstairs and does his total fucking great cop duty, or at least tries, but another dude shows up.
Right. After they get through the elevator and they're coming down, everybody's at gunpoint. Elevator opens and Leo's head's blown off by some other guy. That other guy,
which was, you gotta put a nail on this, right?
Right.
Like when you first saw the movie, the floor dropped out from
right,
under you. Like,
right.
You were like, "No!"
Yeah. Right.
Like, this is not what I expected. What the fuck?
Right. It turns out someone on Matt Damon's task force was one of Costello's other moles.
Right. He basically had the two dudes, right? He had Brown and he had this other dude that, remember, this is fun too. Like, he said, you wanna do some real work, or you wanna come to work every day dressed like you're about to invade Poland?
Oh, that was that guy.
That was that guy. And check it out. Check it out. If you go on the internet, you will find some people that will provide evidence. I'm not gonna say this is true, but I will say, if you look it up, the SS uniform of the National Socialist Party of Germany was a direct ripoff of, guess what?
What?
The Boston police uniform.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Well, that's interesting.
There's a ton of people saying "Oh, give sources" or whatever, but apparently if you look at the two of them, and also the guy that designed the SS uniform for Hitler was he was a Harvard graduate. He was from Boston.
Oh.
Crazy, right?
That's super crazy.
Anyways, I'm not I don't want to go down to that conspiracy theory rabbit hole,
Right.
but it's very interesting that joke was made.
Yeah.
About like, do you want to show up every day in a uniform that looks like you're about to invade Poland?
Wow.
But that other guy that was working for Matt on his little personal task force, he kills Leo and Brown, and then he tells Matt Damon, "Hey, I was also working for Costello this whole time."
Right. And he was like, "Do you think you were the only one?" Blah blah blah. And Matt Damon ends up killing him, which, that way he could cover his tracks, and now nobody knows who he is. But I definitely want to mark this as my number one best. I was saving this for now because we found out that, oh crap, what was his name? There was another undercover cop,
De La Hunt.
De La Hunt, right?
Uh-huh.
So we had two being placed in the Costello's gang. We then have Costello placing two moles into the Boston PD. This is actually like a spy trick, I guess, or not trick, but policy or whatever. You'll have other spies watching your spies to make sure that they're doing their job, or that they're not doing anything sketch.
Okay, because I was gonna give it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I was gonna give it minus spy points. It's one step too fucking complicated for me. That this guy, we'll just call him like Polish uniform,
Right.
or German uniform guy, was also working for Costello this whole time. This whole time that he was working so closely with Matt Damon. Are you telling me you buy this? You can. I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I thought you had more. No, I absolutely do buy this. What I don't buy is Costello planted a guy that was just running like what was he running, like the armory, or he was running like the files like cage or something. He was just a guy behind like the cage, and then all of a sudden Matt Damon picks him to be on his task force. Like, there's no way Costello would have planned that unless he told Matt Damon to pick him.
Well, he could have gotten to him later and started giving them some cheddar and saying like, hey, again, finger to lips. You're just gonna tell me if Matt Damon ever does anything fishy.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That one, it's always good to. So it's not even just to watch the other guy; it's also to verify the information you're getting.
Okay.
They don't even need to know about each other. You just need to verify that information. So, like, having two undercover cops running Costello's gang, one, you could get two different sources of information that one isn't getting or the other isn't getting, but you can also verify both of their information because it's coming from two different sources.
Right. Okay, so I see where you're going with that.
There's several reasons why you would plan, and this goes back to what I've said a million times on our podcast. It's really important to have a team, and that team needs to exist on different levels, right? Like, you don't just need a team of like analysts and a team of surveillance, and you need like a team of people that are like actually doing the actual like human intelligence work, like where like, okay, well, two people are getting information from the same sources, they get the same information, we can now verify that information. You can also use them to see, well, is this guy working for the other guys or not? Like, there's multiple reasons why you would do this.
I'm sold.
Okay. Yeah.
Here's my number one best. And it's such a simple thing, but I'll stand by it. Now that Matt Damon is free and clear, and anybody that could contradict his story is dead in the ground, he consistently insists that Leo get the Medal of Merit. It is a masterful dick move. Like, it is such, like, the audience is sitting there going like, like with their arms crossed and they're fucking like, you're just like, holy fuck, you fucking rat.
Yeah.
Hate him. You hate him so much at this point.
Yeah, at this point, you
in the
absolutely
film.
hate him. Yeah.
But it's again, he is really covering his tracks by so wholeheartedly supporting, giving his support and post depadded love to the one guy that was his enemy. This is villainy, but it's also like plus 5 points.
Absolutely,
it's my best number one.
Absolutely,
absolutely. Give my departed enemy the Medal of Merit, please. Yeah. That guy was awesome.
Yeah. Also adds to his cover. Yeah, it's a big play.
It's masterful Scorsese storytelling because it sets us up as an audience to really, really love what comes next.
The best part of the movie, making Marky Mark the hero that we all deserve. Matt Damon comes home with his groceries, like honey, hoping that, his fiance's there. You already know. You see those boots and you already know, especially if you've watched enough serial killer films, how like the forensics like find fibers and like boot prints and whatever and do.
It's like this guy, when you go to see the crime boss and his flunkies are spreading out a plastic sheet.
And they're wearing those booties, right? You already know from the shot. Oh, okay. Here's our justice. You know what I mean? Like,
and the tracksuit.
Yeah. Then it pans up and you just see a tracksuit coming up. Like every like nanosecond of that shot, like is just like this overwhelming, like yes, like it's great.
It is so satisfying. It is so satisfying to see this character that you have the movie has masterfully done a little like cups moving around the cups,
right?
And like made you pay attention to this, like made you pay attention to that you've kind of forgotten that this guy existed,
right?
And when he shows up again, it's just like you're just like, I don't know, you're fucking creaming your jeans in the movie theater.
Absolutely. Getting goosebumps. You're like, oh my God. Like you already know what's happening. And even though it's such a quick like moment, like it's just, you savor every little like moment of this shot. And you're just like, fuck yes. This is what I came here for. You know what I mean? Like,
and then he walks out and then we see the rat.
Mm-hmm.
Like the actual
there's a rat walking on the windowsill,
right?
As the shots like shooting like Boston or whatever, like you get a shot of Boston,
the Capitol building. Remember, because that was the pitch when Matt Damon bought the apartment. That was one of the pitches of the realtor. Is like, oh, you get a great view of the Capitol.
Right.
So you're literally looking at the Capitol building. With this fucking rat, and then they fucking smash the credits. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's talk about some Infernal Affairs.
Yes, let's do that.
We might need to go into the debriefing room.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
It's the same movie.
Roger Ebert, when reviewing The Departed, he literally said that he could have just cut and pasted some names around and submitted it as like his review of The Departed as a review of
Infernal Affairs.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. There is a character in Infernal Affairs that I think was the inspiration for Mark Wahlberg's character. There's a guy on the force that goes like nuts on everybody in the office, and I'm pretty sure that I even said that when we watched Infernal Affairs. I was like, oh, there's Mark Wahlberg, which I think was important to create, because in the movie there's only one guy that knows the undercover cop's identity. By killing that guy, no one knows that identity when the file's deleted. So I think it's important that you had another person who knows his identity. Now, your point about merging two female characters into one character, lowering the female count and screen time, because Infernal Affairs had a lot more women in it.
Yes,
they were.
that was one of the.
A lot of them were in the background, but there was a lot more women in it.
That was one of the complaints when the creators of Infernal Affairs were asked to comment about The Departed. That was one of their major complaints, is that they thought that the female characters that they had created had been shoved into the background.
I don't disagree with you that Madeline is she's literally just a plot device to develop Matt and Leo. And that really, really sucks, for women, to have a woman character and she's like kind of no dimension. She's just kind of like a bouncing board to develop these other male characters.
Mm-hmm.
And back to your point of just like getting rid of all the female, like in Infernal Affairs, there are women in the police everywhere running surveillance. They have lines. They're like on the force. They're doing jobs. They're, doing all kinds of shit. There aren't that many on the mob side, but that's the mob, right? Type of thing. That's something that bothered me. Like they could have put a lot more. I mean, considering I guess the male hierarchy in Boston police, I guess I don't know, but whatever. Like I'm not getting into that.
Right, but that's what attracts Scorsese to his general, his core material is like machismo. He's all about exploring machismo in different ways. And he does, he explores it in a way that, they get shut down in the end by their hubris. Right. But it's still 90% of the movie is just about them waving their dicks around.
Yeah. Well, but I liked that he had both Matt and Leo having a relationship with the same woman and her being a therapist. In Infernal Affairs, the therapist is the one that the undercover cop is seeing, but she, like in both films, she doesn't know that he's a cop. She just thinks he's like a recovering criminal, and that kind of sparks their relationship. But I liked the idea of them both interacting with a therapist together. I just think it was really shitty that he just turned her into a prop, which is typical for Scorsese films where the women are props, which makes sense in a mob setting. But you're doing this heavy character development where you're going into kind of some dark places, not mob dark places. Hey, we're going to cut this guy's head off. We're going to dark places on an emotional level. How is this affecting these two men? And now your therapist is non-dimensional. She's not even one-dimensional. She's just kind of there. And that bothered me, but I liked that was how they were both seeing the same woman.
I think that Madeline's love for both of these characters is flawed. Their love for her is flawed.
Right.
It doesn't spiral out as much, but it's there at least. They're not loving for the right reasons.
Right.
In Infernal Affairs, Matt Damon analogs girlfriend, who's not a therapist, she's a novelist, is his conscience.
Well, that's what I liked a lot about Infernal Affairs is I think the characters were much more human. And I mean all of the characters. The only thing is that the organized crime mole, Matt Damon's equivalent, I guess, he was more in the background. And he wasn't nearly as good as an actor as Leo's equivalent. I think the guy that played the main guy, which is the undercover cop, was great in this. But I felt that having the two women and the relationships between the two different, the two parallel characters made them a lot more human in a lot of ways. One of the big major changes is that the the organized crime mole doesn't get killed in the end. He actually like repents from his past life. This opportunity was presented to him to like start a new life, and he chooses to do that.
Pitch of the movie for Infernal Affairs is like, two tragic heroes. In The Departed, we hate Matt Damon.
Right.
And we root for El Caps.
Right.
In the Infernal Affairs, we're really more meant to understand that like both of these guys are just fucking sucked into this horrible fucking bullshit. And the Chinese title of Infernal Affairs, it actually more translates into The Unceasing Path, which is a reference to the lowest level of hell in Buddhism, where someone endures suffering forever and ever and ever.
Right.
All right. Well, mainland China has rules. You can never let a villain escape punishment in the end. In a movie, which also, because they actually made Infernal Affairs 2 and 3, which would make no sense.
Right.
If anybody's listening, Infernal Affairs, check that shit out. Let's wrap this up and get our star ratings for The Departed. Final impressions. I can't argue with the art of the creation of the movie by Scorsese. I'm glad he got his Best Director for this. Maybe I wish he'd gotten his Best Director for something else, but who knows? I'm a 4. Fantastic movie, rewatchable, not evergreen. That's me. I've got, and if you're only gonna ever watch 1 or 2 or even 3 Scorsese movies, this wouldn't make my list.
No, I'm with you on a 4. I think what he did was take Infernal Affairs and convert it into like an Oscar type of film. And I think there's a lot of things he tightened up, even though there's a lot of things that I think were better about that were way better in Infernal Affairs. Not only the tradecraft for number 1, but tradecrafts don't win Oscars. But I think there was a lot more humanism. But I don't want to take away from The Departed as a film by itself. Like I think it was really, 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 really good. And I don't think anybody would be disappointed watching it. So I'm going to give it a solid 4.
My number 3 best tradecraft is follow the leader. That's how you find your rat. Instead of wasting your time trying to flesh out the rat, which there are ways you could do. But, if you just follow the rat's leader, he'll eventually lead you to the rat, and that's some good tradecraft. Number 2 best, I like the way that Matt Damon, once he's got that comfy chair, he really does, invite Leo in, and part of that is maybe also having, eliminated Costello and making sure that now is the time to do that and really just absolutely cover his tracks. My number 1 best tradecraft is Matt Damon insisting on the departed Leo getting the Medal of Merit. There's no better way to just fucking try to seal the deal than just commit to your persona that you've taken on and really just apply as much butter and sweetness as you can on that one guy that can't not ever say anything bad about you anymore because he's departed.
Right. My number 3 was Matt Damon keeping his cover when he was calling in Leo. He kept his cover the whole way through. and I thought it was definitely well played. My number 2 was Costello using the FBI for protection. He was pretty much playing everybody. He was in bed with everybody to make sure that nobody could really come after him, and would throw them bones to keep them away from him. My number 1 was both sides planting extra spies. Costello had 2 in the police force, and then Sheen had 2, or somebody from Boston PD had a second undercover cop. And I think that that's definitely Spy Master 101. Definitely have multiple people to verify your information, or even keep watch on your other agents.
Over to the worst. I'll go with my worst. Number 3 is, Matt Damon eventually gets around to running these numbers, and he finds 2 guys that come up as person not found.
Yeah.
And at no point does he share that information with Costello, although he has multiple opportunities to do so. My number 2 worst, that Costello would have named to his lawyer that Leo was his most trusted person and the one person that should get all of his secret tapes. And also, I think El Caps could have done better with those tapes. My number 1 worst, the idea that the other guy was also a mole the whole time. I get it. Dave likes it. I don't. That's my worst number 1. I feel like it just shows up out of nowhere and feels.
Oh, no, it definitely does show up out of nowhere, and I think there's a cheat. But since we're picking apart tradecraft, I'm just isolating it from the storytelling of filmmaking. Like you definitely have to have those plans. But you're right. When we as an audience get revealed that information, I'm definitely on board with you that it was just kind of out of left field, which is what tradecraft should be anyway, right? My number 3 was Leo running away after realizing Matt Damon was the rat. He should have bid his time. I mean, it makes sense because he just got that release of I'm in a safe place now. I can go to sleep. I can stop popping pills. Maybe I'll call up Madeline. My number 2 was Leo made the suggestion to use the barium meal to suss out the rat, and nobody, Martin Sheen or Marky Mark didn't follow up on that or didn't use that, and it ended up prolonging, I guess, the issue. My number 1 is Martin Sheen telling Matt Damon his guy spotted the rat the night. He gave him all the information. It was way too much information to give outside of his circle, dealing with an asset of this much value. This asset was very valuable to both of them, and it was too much information to be giving out.
Hey Dave, what's a park bench rating?
We're on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 park benches being the most realistic, 1 park bench being the least realistic.
So park benches for The Departed. Dave, you got some thoughts? Let's hear them.
I just want to throw this out there. I want to start at a 4.5, but I think you're probably going to talk me down. I think everybody acted within their means. We really crapped all over Martin Sheen and his kind of sad attempts at being master spy, but I mean I don't think he's had any intelligence experience. I think he just maybe worked undercover, right? So I'm sure that's why he could handle undercover agents. But as far as pulling barium meal, I mean, I was just surprised to have Leonardo DiCaprio's character even bring up the idea of just disinformation. Tell him a bullshit lie at SIU and see if it makes it through. Leo was able to think of this. And then Costello makes sense because he's probably dealt with undercover agents in the past. So he's probably got little cute tricks like his one-off barium meal that he throws out there. But
yeah, I'm gonna drag you way down though. Drag you way down. I could maybe see a 4 for the reasons you're giving, but I actually want to go down to a 3.5 on the new system. A Most Wanted Man is a 4. Munich is a 4. Company TV miniseries Part 2 is a 4. A couple of those are really grounded in history. And
Right.
I like what you're saying, but I really want to try to drag this down to a 3.5. Put it in Miss Sloane Good Shepherd territory.
And Samurai Spy. I think you made a good point. Maybe we should just give it a 3.5. And you know, that's decent territory. That puts us Samurai Spy, Miss Sloane, and Good Shepherd, and those are hefty. You know, this isn't just out of the blue. You know.
Oh, great. It's great territory. I think a 3.5 is absolutely earned. You're gonna raise some eyebrows for me if you want to push it up to a 4.
But yes, I think you've made a good point about it. Yeah, let's do 3.5.
Boom, baby. And that's an episode.
Yeah. And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You know, find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.